Okay. Might do just cut a video in between. Breaking the Death Habit. The Science of Everlasting Life. The author's foreword. This book is a practical discussion of the basic ideas and practice for personal mastery and health. I have presented here the minimum foundation for personal immortality, which I learned from the true immortal yogis. These practices are also referred to, if not explicitly, described in the Bible and all great scriptures. For example, Elijah was the fire master of the Bible, but nowhere does he discuss the theory of fire, purification, or the spiritual power of fire. Whoa. It's just going to be some crappy audio for this one. Okay. All right. Let's see if we can get rid of some of the background noise by getting closer. Ooh, the shaving. It's terrible, isn't it? All right, whatever. I believe we are moving into a new age of physical immortality and personal mastery. An age of divine human beings who don't forget their humanity. God has been systematically working behind the scenes of human history. She is the God of science and technology and even the United Nations as well as religion. Or she is no God at all. The governments of the world do God's will for the enlightenment of individuals. It has to be a gradual process. It is invisible except to those who have eyes to see. God has given us the practical tools to be immortal. The bottleneck is dead orthodoxies. Philosophies and beliefs, not only in churches but in education, science, business, and government. After meeting and studying 8 immortal yogis who mastered over 300 years in the same body, I consider the common denominators. I've condensed the common denominators that make them immortal. I present those principles to you here. They are simple and pleasurable to work with. If the path of physical immortality were not pleasurable, then the Creator would be a Satanist who requires eternal pain and misery. The spiritual practice that make us immortal are so simple they are easy to ignore. This is how physical death became so popular. Being immortal is on the same level of difficulty as earning a living on or supporting a family. It takes focus and self-discipline, along with a certain amount of intelligence and endurance to raise children and pay their bills through college. Becoming immortal Becoming an immortal yogi master may be easier than this, but it takes focus and persistence in the right habits. I call them the habits of personal aliveness and the disciplines of pleasure. You will learn what they are in this book. My central point is that victory over death is within our reach. I describe the spiritual purification practice used by all the immortal yogis I have met in terms of Western civilization. Our civilization can either suck away our life energy and kill us, or support our everlasting life in comfort and pleasure. It is up to you. You can focus on life and mastery or defeat and death. Obviously, the more people who adopt this focus on personal immortality and mastery, the easier it becomes for all of us. Although some of the immortal yogis participate for many years in society, it is definitely easier for them to live in small supportive communities in the Himalaya, for example. To get everyone in a small town or a large city engaged in a dialogue about physical immortality and personal mastery is an intelligent contribution to our own survival. But it is not necessary or perhaps even feasible to persuade anyone to be immortal. Some people desire to die, and they deserve this right. However, everyone deserves the right to choose life or death. Without the information in this book, people do not have a meaningful choice. Most people are too immersed in the death urge and the death consciousness to care about immortal yogis or even their own divine potential. Unfortunately, mass death urge has a tendency to disasters. The best thing you can do for the health of a neighborhood or a nation is to master and spread the ideas of physical immortality and voluntarily spiritual purification before God makes it involuntary. Physical death in all its forms is involuntary purification. May the new millennium bring us all mastery and longevity. Preface. The preface of the book. A little better. First meeting. In 1979, Leonard came into my life, and I have never been the same. Leonard is a mind blower. He has the ability to alter reality. If you enter into a relation with him with any degree of sincerity, you will be mutated. Stuff is going to come up in his presence. Anything that is less pure than he is, and you are going to have to address it. Reading this book is entering into a relationship with him. On the fateful evening of our initial meeting, I went with two friends to something called a money seminar at Leonard's legendary rebirthing center, the Theta House in San Francisco. At an old Victorian at 30I Lyon Street, across from the panhandle leading into Golden Gate Park, we found our way up to a large attic. Leonard was quite a draw in the late 70s. It was standing room only, at least 80 people. Each visitor was handed Leonard's strange pamphlet, The Prophecy of Consciousness Consultation. The Prosperity Consciousness Consultation. The seminar consisted of this essay being read aloud by various participants. Discussion of ideas and questions followed. For the most part, Leonard just sat there in front of the room, exuding a cherishary smile, like a Cheshire cat. Dude, if you're watching this, you may be awake at 1 a.m. with nothing to do but scrolling through YouTube in a YouTube black hole. If that's you, leave a comment below. Say hi. Let's see. Google define Cheshire. Chair. You know, I could edit this out, but you know, you have a fast forward button. Are you feeling lucky?
Cheshire.
Cheshire? A kind of firm, crumbly cheese originally made from Cheshire. Cheshire smile. That's okay. Near the end, to my astonishment, he gave everyone an opportunity to pay him again. Anything from $1 to $100. Considering that those in the attendance had already shedded a $15 entry fee for the attic, it seemed crazy that anyone would choose to lay down more money. It stunned me to watch people literally lining up for the privilege of paying Leonard money. Meanwhile, Leonard was sporting a newly shaved head. He was also wearing a green sweater with dollar signs all over it. No kidding. I later discovered that the shaving was a spiritual purification technique passed directly to him from Babaji, but it must be done consciously. Your crown chakra is consistently being impressed by programs that are encoded in your hair. When you shave your head, it stops receiving those old impressions. Leonard just sat there and smiled, accepting each divinity in turn. The second time I went to hear Leonard, I came prepared to donate. I didn't know why, perhaps just to see what it felt like. So I had $25 on me, $15 to get into the door, plus an additional $10 for Leonard. I brought my longtime friend Ela. Define Ela. Yeah, it's Ela. It's Ela from now on. That's what it's fucking called. This second time, I didn't know why. Perhaps it just blah blah blah. I brought my longtime friend Ela. Just before we got to the discussion, I asked Ela if she could lend me $10. I suddenly had an irrational desire to give Leonard $20 instead of $10. My companion must have thought I was crazy, but she reluctantly dug a $10 bill out of her purse. At the appropriate moment, I got in line with my $20. In 1979, that was a lot of cash for me. $25 when you count the $15 to get into the door. Long ago, I had learned that the footloose lifestyle was more meaningful to me than accumulating equity, especially if the later meant doing something unpleasant or tedious. A day in an ancient redwood grove or by the great Pacific was more lucrative, spiritually anyway, than working. He was a hippie, is what he's saying. As Leonard joking, as Leonard would later note, I was in transition from conditioned motivation and an automotion following instructions and reinforced by money to divine automation, whereby work is an expression of authority and true nature. Leonard was wearing his green dollar-billed sweater again, his head freshly reshaved. As I stood in line, I sensed doubt creeping in. This is loco. What am I even doing? Then it came my turn to pay. I felt embarrassed, stupid, intimidated, weird, frightened, you name it. I could barely look at Leonard, yet I was somehow able to hand him $20. He just sat there and smiled. Leonard has the capacity to shatter your view of reality in a multitude of ways. I later learned that he is an expert in group synergy. As he would explain it, whenever two or more people gather, there is an exchange of energy. If the other person is more conscious than you are, what you will feel is your own aroused energy, i.e., your fears and limitations. When you get to the point where you can just be with that person, you have moved through or integrated the particular set of fears associated with his or her presence. The money ritual was part of this process, a ceremony by which Leonard shepherded my introduction into what you might call guru consciousness. 2. I didn't know there was a number 1. What are you talking? 1. Meeting. 2. Rebirthing. The mind and the breath are the king and queen of human consciousness. Leonard Orr. When I met Leonard that evening at the Panhandle, I went solely to hear about money. Yet he began the evening talking about breathing. Breathing? I wondered. What's that got to do with anything? I came here to get my money case handled. Let's get on with it. Later I would discover that the answer to my question was everything. But at the time, I had no idea. I thought I knew how to breathe, and I figured everyone else did too. Later that evening, Leonard announced that he would be conducting a year-long program beginning in March 1980. 8 more years until I was born. The purpose of this program... I'm going to keep reading. The purpose of this program... I should stop. Oh, cliffhanger. What's the purpose of the program? I don't know. But read that tomorrow. Discipline. Alright, well. quarter way through the preface. And there's a lot of preface. It's basically the book. Jeez. Be exciting to get to chapter 1. But Breaking the Death Habit. The Science of Everlasting Life. Curious read. I'm going to donate $1 bill. Catch you next time. This is so awkward.